whatever. I guess the coma of the Thanksgiving hangover is better. So this is good. Hey, well, welcome. This is our 29th jam session. We are excited. Obviously got a good crew here today. And we do these just to reconnect the community. Obviously, it's hard to, you'd be breaking the law. I shouldn't say hard, you'd be breaking the law if you we try to do a Real Producers event. So I've just found that these little small group gatherings are great. People tune into these, people tune out. They're just fun. So what I am going to do, and actually before we do start, everybody smile really fast so we can get a nice photo. This may or may not be in the next issue of Real Producers. I don't know. I might know a guy who can make that happen. So everybody smile, hold it for a few seconds. 1, 2, 3. I think we nailed it actually in the first try. But no, thanks everybody for joining. I just want to kick this off. Our primary mission statement with Chicago Real Producers is to connect, elevate, and inspire leaders in Chicago real estate, just like-minded entrepreneurs, people who are connected to the real estate industry in general, and not everybody, not just to help everybody to maintain their business and coast along, but really to thrive. I believe it's a critical time for the best of the best to link arms, just sort of glean insights from each other. This has been insane since March. I mean, who would have thunk in December of 2019 that would be all on a Zoom call talking shop? I would have never done that. Worldwide pandemic, COVID, racial unrest, even with the past election. And so this is we have 5 jam sessions scheduled for December, just from the demand of these. So with it being difficult to connect in groups of 10, 20 plus, the goal really of these is to take a break from our quarantines, build a new relationship, just get face to face with some people, share what is authentic, and just updating, what is authentic and real in the market in town. I think people's mindsets are a little more, I don't know, you were stable, that'd be a good word, stable versus like 6 months ago. And also just to share tips and strategies of how we're all working through this unique situation. So what I'm going to do now is transition. I'm going to have the realtors introduce themselves first, and then I will say some words and then have the partners introduce themselves, and then we'll start jamming together. So hopefully you guys remember your order. If not, I will prompt you. Hadley, go ahead and really briefly I'm sorry, I forgot to frame this. When you introduce yourself, just name, brokerage, how long you've been in the industry for. I made the mistake on the very first 1 or 2 of these. I had an agent introduce himself, and he literally gave himself like a 9-minute monologue. So that's not the time to do this. So that was my fault. I didn't frame it properly. So live and learn. So Hadley, go ahead, my friend.
My name is Hadley Rue. I'm a broker with Dreamtown Realty.
How long in the biz for?
6 years.
All right, go ahead, Danny.
Danny Lewis, Dreamtown as well. And wow, I can't believe I've been in the business longer than Hadley, 10 years. That's crazy. And my first deal, by the way, was with that guy in the bottom, Joey C.
Love it.
I'm Lynn Harvey Baird Warner, and I've been in the industry for 8 years.
I'm Ashley Donay. I'm one of the leads of the bridge team at Compass, and I've been in the industry for 8 years as well.
And I think that comes to me. I'm Joey Chapetta. I'm the managing broker at Property of Chicago, and I have been in for 11 years. Does that make me the longest on the call here?
Apparently so. I will transition really quick to the partners. We have some unique industries on this, which I like. I get referred to a lot of people, but I will say this. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I'll just say this from the bottom of my heart. Literally, I cannot do anything without the support from our partners. We pride the fact that our platform is non-pay to play. I know there's a lot of publications out there where people pay for publicity. The word I like to use is toot your own horn. Your mind can go wherever you want to with that. But joking aside, I appreciate the fact that, Billy, Richard, I mean, Morgan, I cannot do what I do. I literally don't have a job without you guys. So, I mean, you've put your trust in me to be a good steward of the resources and just to, to connect everybody. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. People tell me I'm good at what I do. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, I get a lot of love from realtors saying, hey, I love the magazine. Your events are awesome. But I just want to tell you, people like Billy, Richard, and Morgan, they're the ones who back me. And, I can't thank you enough. So if you, one thing I know about realtors is that they're used to being harassed by vendors. That won't happen here. I'm sure they're just really here to add value and be a resource. I mean, organically, I know some of you might want to connect after, and I'll send everybody's info out. So I'm gonna let the partners go first, and then we can start jamming. I think Morgan, you were on first, Billy, and then Richard, and then we'll go ahead. So yeah, go ahead, my friend.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. My name is Morgan Luigi. I'm a financial advisor here in the Chicago area. I work with a number of realtors, other individuals, in the entrepreneurial space. Really just been doing this for a handful of years, but been in the asset management industry for about 12 years now. So yeah, I kind of take that comprehensive approach and really look at everything, whether it be taxes now, taxes tomorrow, and kind of how your income streams flow. And kind of what your financial goals are, and really help people, align their activities with their intentions.
Billy, go ahead, sir.
My turn. I was gonna say, I think that's my turn. Hi, I'm Billy Stevenson. We have been partnered with Real Producers for about a year. My company is iCandy Marketing. We are 10 years old, and we're a locally owned and operated incentives and gifts company. We have been working with the real estate industry for quite a few years. One of the things that we do, in addition to all of the big stuff for a lot of your firms, like bigger orders, is that because we produce all of our own stuff locally, we're good for things like client gifts, 2 blankets and 2 of this and 2 of that, for a lot of companies in our market can't do that because they don't actually do production. So and Joey has been a very good client for a number of years. So got to give him a shout out for that. Hi, Joey.
Order from Billy. His stuff is great.
I will give you a little plug, man. And I know obviously I want to give Richard a spotlight too, but with the gifting season coming up, I mean, it's a perfect segue. I also did the pleasure of changing your name to iCandy.com right there, just so people can see it. So
which is not my website, but that's okay.
It's not.
No, it's
it's iCandy Marketing. It is. Oh, don't go there, everybody.
They'll try and sell you that website for a lot of money.
They've tried to do it
to me for 10 years.
iCandyMarketing.com. There we go. Who knows what's going to come up? Richard, after we'll segue into that. Go ahead, man.
Actually, that is a perfect segue. So, Andy says, we got to toot your own horn per se, but as far as eye candy goes, there's certain industries that it comes with eye candy. So real estate is one of them. And I can tell you that when I first met Andy, he put the contract in front of me. I didn't read it. I just signed it. So, it was easy to do, Andy. So no stress there. As far as myself, so Richard Greenwood, company is Tri-State Restore. We do property restoration, everything from a disaster standpoint, as well as just basic property remodeling. So for homes that are going through just basic renovation, we can do that, but we mostly focus on insurance property restoration. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. The company in general has been doing this for over 10 years.
Love it, sir. So this is part where literally I shut up, because if I talk, then people are not going to get a lot of value from this and not want to be on another one of these. So let's anything real estate. Let's start jamming. I think Hadley, you had something in the get go. We were kind of talking, so I'll let you have the floor, my friend, and I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah, so we were kind of discussing earlier, and I wanted to bring kind of just to the table is kind of how the market is changing and kind of what inventory is presenting as far as for sellers and buyers. Something that I've noticed in the last month is that properties that are listed primarily with our sellers is that normally these properties would have been under contract, but I'm seeing that some of the properties that would have gone under contract sooner, they're actually still on the market, and advocating with our clients and aka sellers, how do we help move these properties, through price reductions, different marketing techniques, and so forth. Just kind of surprising that some of these properties are lingering. So, my main concern, and one of the issues I wanted to bring up is, one is, are you guys, other brokers, experience this, and what are you doing for it, and so forth?
I guess I'll start. Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot of my listings have been sitting, but looking back in the history of my real estate career, usually it's pretty common for November, especially around the holidays as well. That being said, this is a different type of year. With the stay-at-home advisory and everything, is obviously is going to cut off the amount of people that are going to see places. You can't have as many open houses, etc. But I wouldn't say it's really uncommon in November to be a little bit slower. But yeah, it is slower than other Novembers. I could definitely say that.
In going back to this, these are some listings that are obviously in, prime locations that are really sought after, that, if you put something that was under, for sale, it would have been under contract in, a week or 2 weeks. I've just seen, not only through my listings, but through other agents' listings, that there are definitely properties that are of value. You've done the price reductions. It's good, bang for your buck, and they're still sitting there, and they are updated. It's not because the aesthetics of the property or what the property has to offer. It's just kind of surprising that in the a specific desired location, community, that they're just there. And I just, like, for example, I have one property that's located in Andersonville that I'm just surprised it's not under contract, and it's been 3 months, and advocated for price reductions. My clients understand it. They definitely, are vested in me as the agent. We did have another unit go for sale in a building, but it went under contract, and it was just kind of unique how normally in a normal circumstance, this would have been long gone.
I've got one of those that has been, I've had it on since July. It's a giant 2-bed, 1-bath. The most recent sale was $360 in the building. We're now at $310. And we cannot move it, and it's in better shape than that was.
Yep.
And after a while, it's in East Lakeview, so I pulled numbers in Lakeview to see year to date 2019 versus 2020. Let's look at 2-bed, 1-baths, how many had sold, and let's look at 2-bed, 2-baths, how many had sold. And we saw a dramatic decrease in 2-bed, 1-bath sales, and a decent increase in 2-bed, 2-bath sales. Yeah, so 2-bed, 2-1s were down like 15%, 2-2s were up, I think, 16%. So that's like a 30% disparity there. And I went to my clients and I said, look, all I can tell you is that the pandemic has really made people think, I can't stand staring at my husband all day, much less sharing a toilet with him. I got to have more bed and bath count. I got to have a home office. I got to have room to homeschool the kids. So, some product types are just really tough right now. And honestly, things with 1 bathroom are painful. The place has 2 outdoor spaces, it has 2 living rooms. It's got all the stuff about the bathroom.
And I would even say, I'm always of the mindset that there's 2 things that sell a home, right? Price and condition. So ask, say to your seller, what do you want to improve, the condition or the price? Those are typically, but I think what I've saw in one of my listings, 3-bed, 3.5-bath, townhome, Lincoln Park, garage parking pad, huge outdoor space. I check all the COVID boxes. And we came on August 13th, and we are still on the market. And my clients have been aggressive with price. We've made a price drop. We had a unit in the complex sell in the early summer for like $780. We came on at $775, and we have not budged. And now we're down at $725. And I think what's unique this year is that it's not just price and condition, but also timing. And, some ways, my clients are saying, did we just miss timing? Like, did we just miss that hot spot that was earlier in the year? And so when we came on mid-August, I was like, okay, let's kind of hold tight, because typically after Labor Day, let's maybe make a price reduction, and we'll see, a second win from Labor Day to Thanksgiving. And again, my clients were proactive. We reduced the price. We relaunched right after Labor Day. And I think a lot of new inventory came on after Labor Day, and buyer demand declined. And it never really spiked after Labor Day like we typically see. And so then it's just become this supply and demand cycle since Labor Day. The inventory is going up and the demand is going down. And I think people are between elections and rioting and holidays coming, I think there's a lot of people who are just not going to come back to the market until the new year. And so for me personally, with this listing, I'm not sure that we're that far off in pricing. I think it will take a refresh, staging, maybe a slight reduction in price and put it back up after the new year and after the holidays. But that was a product that you would expect to move quickly.
Then one of the things that I have been doing, and you might be doing this as well with your clients, but I've been tracking, so in InfoSparks, I draw a map of the north side where I do most of my business. And I've been tracking by week number of properties that go under contract. And you can see, I mean, it was a massive spike in June and it's been downhill ever since. There was the slightest uptick in the last 2 weeks of October, but really it wasn't that much of a bump like we would normally have after Labor Day, like you're talking about.
And I think the market has been very micro this year, you know, and I think that's what's hard for consumers because they hear broad sweeping statements about the real estate market as a whole. But I think you could break it down to product type, price point, and neighborhood and paint a very different picture from what's going on in River North right now to what's going on in Andersonville and, you know, Ravenswood and other neighborhoods. I mean, I have my clients set up MLS searches. So if a property comes on market, goes under contract, pending close, they get an alert. So my clients are seeing what I'm seeing, and we're just, they're not seeing too much. I mean, there's not a whole lot going under contract right now.
I'm seeing that inventory is higher than it's been, or it's at its highest point since October of 2011, which is crazy to think about. September was a spike and it went down a little bit in October, but it's still incredibly high. And that's across all property types when I look at the data. And so all I'm doing is showing my sellers, hey, look, inventory is really high, number of sales are down. It's a tough market out there right now.
It's about
That's why I'd advocated, you know, to my clients, you know, instead of pulling this off the market because the amount of inventory, it's better to be on the market. It only takes one, right? So right now, I think that goes back to days on market. You know, I'm telling my clients, listen, days on market is a number. We're not following it as closely as we would before, just to the fact, basically, with pandemic and just the recipe of what's going on in the city in general. So, you know, but, you know, we've done the price reductions and I've advocated just to, you know, hold steady, be on the market. You know, we're available there for showings. We're granting everything, making sure that, you know, we're presenting the property in the best manner. But, you know, I told them it just takes one.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the city to suburban shift, along with all the other variables that Lynn mentioned, also plays a significant role in how the market's moving right now?
I got to be honest, I'm so tired of hearing about the suburban thing. When I read in claims that August saw more sales in Lake Forest than ever, well, like August is always slow, and so everything just got shifted. And okay, 9 houses sold in Lake Forest. That's not a mass exodus of city dwellers.
It's the most ever, Joey. It's not. It's a world record.
The suburban agents are super excited because this is the most activity they've seen in a while. So I totally get it, but it's really not mass exodus. I mean, I think if you look at it in sort of circles of how the city grows from the downtown outward, the downtown in general, yes, we're seeing high inventory and people are leaving those areas, but the neighborhoods have done really, really well. And single family homes, which were lagging for some time, are doing really, really well. So it's not mass exodus. I think the people who bought in the burbs I'll speak for my clients, were people who were planning in the next 2 years anyway. So I don't think, I wouldn't call it a mass exodus. I would.
And rates have surely helped, because during this, the rates have been very aggressive and they have lowered as well.
I think a more interesting conversation is not necessarily this mass exodus, but the amount of first-time buyers that are buying way sooner because of the lower interest rates, that are just leaving their apartments or trying to sublet at a discount and then buying much quicker than they normally would, and what that actually is doing to investors and landlords. Much so a lot quicker, I feel like, this year than, had rates not gone down as low as they've been.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, you really bring up an interesting point, Ashley. I mean, the 2008 crisis was a financial crisis. It was huge mortgage issues, et cetera. This is a health crisis, and lenders are still handing out money. So we're not really seeing that issue where people are having issues getting financing, et cetera. I think issue is inventory and just getting people out of their house for the most part. But yeah, it is a lot different than other crises we've gone through.
Yeah, and I'll be interested because I feel right before Thanksgiving, I'd gotten a lot of activity on my one listing actually that hadn't had any activity for weeks. And it was all new buyers had entered the market. It was the first property they had seen. And I thought that was very interesting. And I think that could be telltale of what's to come. I think for the past 3 years, maybe now, we've seen the spring market creep up, and it's earlier and earlier and earlier every year. And I think if people are not traveling over the holidays and they're not going anywhere for Christmas and Hanukkah and Thanksgiving, all that kind of stuff, they're actually using their downtime to start to consider buying. So it would be, to your point, Hadley, do you stay on the market? Do you keep the listing on because, there's quite a few new buyers in this space?
Sure. Yeah, I think this year will be particularly interesting. I mean, obviously already has been, but with everything going on from, obviously COVID-19 to civil unrest to potential property tax increases with, Illinois and Chicago. I think that uncertainty has kept people probably on the sidelines for longer and wondering what's temporary versus what ends up being a permanent kind of disruption to their lives or their businesses. I just saw that I think Congress is unveiling a new aid bill. So hopefully, that combined with the vaccine and, hopefully a peaceful transition gets us to a place where people are feeling a little bit more secure about their financial futures. And I think it's going to be a weird year for when you're having your big months versus not, seemingly.
I'm going to ask a question from an outside looking in perspective, if I could. I look at our business has had to change what we do in a different way as everybody's has. What we have noticed is since markets are different and fall was not what should have been and summer was different, so everything's out the window. So we're looking at what is going on now. And what the trends we've noticed actually is that since the words vaccine have started to trickle into the daily, that people seem to be very quick to start to lean towards back on the normal buying habit, and may adjust them a little bit for the, where they wouldn't have bought their entire team 30 Sherpa blankets. They're doing it now. They're just having it shipped into their house because they know that next year they'd be able to give them to them in person. Point being is that people seem to, now that there's a little hope on the horizon, people seem to be wanting to go back to the normal that they once knew. Do you guys, nobody can predict it, but are you thinking that the spring, the market after the first of the year may kind of see that for that reason too?
I think it'll feel more like a normal spring this year versus what we just had, because like I said, I think we're the timing of a surge in cases is putting people back in their homes. And I think that people will be leaving their homes again in January, as I think we'll see restrictions ease and first doses of vaccine come out. So I think it's going to feel a little bit more normal this year in terms of the spring wave that we normally get. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, last year, March and April was a complete shock for everybody. No one's ever gone through anything like this before. So at least this year, we kind of know what to expect. Won't be as much of a shock per se. So I agree that I think spring is going to be obviously a lot busier than spring for sure.
Yeah, and I think just in general, people have very short memories, and while this consumes our lives right now, if a vaccine starts to roll out in the next 2 weeks, and they're also with the talk of, major cities being a huge part of that focus, obviously because of density and population, I think come second quarter, we could start to feel very normal. I mean, that's what I was reading just the other day, you know, about really the biggest impediment to getting back to a normal in a major city is elevators. And how do you put thousands of employees back into William Blair if they can't get in the elevator and get up to their offices in a timely manner, and you can't get out? And the same thing with high rises downtown. You know, the issue with the high rise buildings is that people don't want to deal with elevator situations. So I think, you know, that could be a huge, it could be a huge game changer and really make us feel back to normal by the second quarter, I think. And then people forget all about it and they'll be back on their patios and sipping their margaritas at Big Star.
We're all still sipping margaritas. I
I was
don't know.
going to say, I think we did more of that this year.
Not at all.
This may or may not be tea.
Which then leads down to, you know, the restaurants and like West Loop. I mean, you know, West Loop right now is like Armageddon. It's a ghost town. I got 2 listings there and I can't get a showing for my life on any of those. So, but no, that's Lynn, that's really a great segue. That's great.
And I think it's also been interesting to see how the rental market's been impacted also. You know, I have a lot of clients that are like, oh, I don't want to sell if I'm not going to get the price I want. Let's just rent it. And I'm like, I mean, you might be jumping from the frying pan into the fire on that one, because renters have the most flexibility. They have moved home to go live with parents and extended family or get out of the city. So it's not necessarily advantageous to even put your property up for rent right now. It's not guaranteeing a client that they'll cover their costs, and it's certainly not guaranteeing that I'll get you a tenant in the next 30 days.
For sure. I mean, I am in the West Loop and I'm seeing all these new construction high rises that are rental buildings that are still pretty much empty for the most part. So yeah, I mean, if you're trying to rent, there's gonna be a lot of competition no matter what.
Yeah.
I feel like that shift into like rentals with a ton of amenities and common spaces, obviously, like that was the direction things were moving in, and clearly that's not what's moving right now. So
those rates for the luxury full amenity rental buildings are back down to 2013 rates. They've been on a steady increase, and those have really been hit hard. But I mean, every rental has a 1-bedroom in Ravenswood. I had the hardest time renting. We took, 20% less than the data showed it was worth. Richard, I got a question for you. All of the home improvement people that I have worked with in my world, they, like us, were dead for 2 weeks as soon as the stay-at-home order hit, and they have been slammed all year. Are you seeing that, and do you think that will continue into next year?
So when the pandemic, this is somewhat ironic, to be honest. When it all hit, we felt that immediate slowdown. And then, fortunately for us, we're in the disaster business per se. So when all the rioting and all those things took place, it was somewhat of a blessing in the sky for us, because that kept us going throughout the rest of those months. And those were pretty big projects. We have had some activity in just doing some of those, refreshing to get units, looking the way they need to look to incentivize the sale. But those have also slowed down. And right now, as the year closes, we're kind of back down to a slow again. So, we're not having the type of activity that we normally would have had. Right now, I'm pretty much banking on the polar vortex to roll through the city again.
You need some broken pipes, don't you? There goes Richard chasing an ambulance down the road.
So, and right now that may not even happen, because the weather is seeming very temperamental. So, not that we're wishing ill on anyone. We're here more just to be the support. But as far as trend goes, yeah, it's also been somewhat down for us as well. So, it certainly does impact us as well. I am hoping that people do start to see the value of coming into the city, investing in the city, And of course, that'll help our business as well. I had a question as well. I know earlier, as this whole pandemic started, we spoke about potentially leveraging tools like this to hopefully, increase buyers' awareness in viewing properties or just getting things on the market and boosting activity. And I'm certain you guys have implemented some of those things. Have you seen positive results, leveraging more online virtual tools as opposed to doing things in person?
I think, was it Lynn or Ashley that said that people have a short memory?
Yeah.
Because
I can't remember. Sorry.
Lynn.
That was too easy. I'll shut up. That was too easy.
No, we're doing virtual tours for all of our listings now, which is not something that we did on every single listing prior. But I feel it's gone back to all in-person showings. No one's making a decision without seeing it in person.
I agree with you, Joey.
Yeah, virtual
I do
tours.
feel though that people are doing a little bit more due diligence before just, casually scheduling showings or casually walking into open houses. I think they are leveraging the tools online a little bit more to make sure that it is a property that they actually maybe do want to see. I know as a listing agent, I will verify with some agents that their clients have actually looked at the tour, because if you come in and tell me you don't like the color of the kitchen cabinets, like, you saw that online, so I think there is an interesting component this year where the number of showings when it was a little bit busier probably was less, and that translated to an offer quicker because people were doing their due diligence online, looking at virtual tours or looking at floor plans.
Yeah, virtual tours are great, but in my opinion, they do our sellers a disservice. The whole reason they hire us is to sell their place. And if they're looking online, if they're just touring, clicking a button, doesn't give us the chance to talk about the updates our sellers did, to talk about the building, to talk about the area. So while virtual tours might be a way to visually see the place really well, in my opinion, it just doesn't sell it because we're not there.
Which leads into a question, open houses. What are you seeing through the activity coming through your open houses? What's your vibe on that and so forth?
Yeah, I would say open houses have been like a slow push. In the beginning, everyone was, going to put on a hazmat suit to walk into an open house. But now that it's been a couple months into it, I wouldn't say people are lax, but people are a little bit more non-cautious to go through and to actually see places. The toughest part about open houses was getting our sellers to agree to them for the most part, because they were the ones who were the most concerned, as they should be. But yeah, I would say it's been like a slow rush back into normalcy when it comes to open houses from my experience.
So a lot of my clients push for the open houses now. They say people have masks, they have gloves. Okay, it's just like walking on the street or going through the grocery store, doing what you need to do on a daily basis. But the activity is just at zero. It's like if someone really wants to see a property currently, they're coming with their agent, they're making an appointment. Joey, you showed one of my properties over in Patterson. You make the appointment, you bring your client through, you propose the cons, the pros, you see what it is, they get a feel for it, and that's what it is.
I actually feel like open houses might have been good. It's only my listing.
I agree.
It's only my vacant listings that have the sellers want them. But has anyone had anyone freak out yet at one? Because I had one woman like totally freak out. There's too many people in here. Like she screamed and people fled. And I was like, okay, maybe you're not like the right fit for an open house.
Our team does open houses every single weekend, and they have actually, there's nothing different about open houses right now than I feel like in a normal year. Some are busy, some are slow, some are, hit or miss. It depends on are the Bears winning that weekend or not? Like what time is the game? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of other weekend factors, but I feel like for the most part, they have been actually quite busy from, what the contrary would believe.
Yeah.
Question. One question I kind of had for all of you, and Hadley, you kind of talked about this earlier, is, maybe those properties that haven't moved that you thought were going to, What are those conversations like that you're having with your clients and the options that they've got available, you know, whether it's staying on the market or, you know, private listings, or, you know, what's that been like, you know, for you all, and what's the success been in those?
So
For-
for that one listing that I was speaking about, it is a very loft style unit. It is a 2-bed, 2-bath. It's a master ensuite. However, when we first went to market, the kitchen was dated. It had the blonde cabinets and it did not have an upgraded kitchen, quartzite, and so forth. When we went to market, it was the peak of the market. It was back in June, particularly in Andersonville. And with that being said, there was nothing in the price range. We listed at the 379, 2-bed, 2-bath, top floor, eastern and southern exposure with a parking spot. So not a bad price for that. Walkable downtown, or when I say downtown, I mean down to the heart of Andersonville. All of a sudden, within that 1 week, 2 other units went for sale in this building. So now all of a sudden, the other agents, other sellers realized this. They came to market quickly. We had 2 other units that went under contract. So I spoke with my sellers and I said, hey, look, let's go ahead and get your cabinets painted. Let's put a quartz countertop in this. That should help move it along. So, you know, going back to what you're saying, you got to move with the market a little, right? You got to kind of educate and say, hey, this is where it's at. This is what has moved. The other ones had upgraded kitchens. This might be something, you know, for minimum money versus just starting to slash off the price tag. So we did that, and we got a lot more interest, but still it obviously hasn't moved. So, you know, it's a catch-22. And, you know, it's one of those predicaments that I don't think we like to find ourselves in representing our property, you know, nor less our clients. I think that Joey, you hit something, and Lynn, you also made a comment. It does not have its own outdoor space. So, you know, that just kind of rang a bell, you know, like they know that, but it does have a shared rooftop. So if you do want outdoor space, you can go out and sit out there, but you know, that could be something too. You know, it's on the top floor, 3rd floor, so 3 sets of stairs. So, but you know, that's kind of, I guess, trying to move with the market.
Hadley, one of the things that, and I forgot to mention this earlier, we're working with a particular client in Logan Square, and they bought the property, but I believe the agent that they bought it from gave them somewhat of an inspiration of how they could leverage the property for future use. So they actually bought it knowing that they were going to convert it. So they extended the roof so that the attic space was actually now a second livable space. They reconverted one of the bathrooms, and they did this knowing that, you know, they're moving it from a single family home so that they could turn it into a rental unit, but somewhat of a luxury rental unit. So I think, you know, one of the things that would be good is you know, being that inspiration for some of your potential clients so that they can see into the future. I know somebody mentioned, you know, going from 1 bathroom to 2 bathrooms. If it's something that could be done in the space, it's, you know, to be honest with you, the prices on reconstruction, or the margins, I should say, on reconstruction, they're crazy. So if you have a good partner per se to work with, you can bring a lot of this to life without it, you know, being burdensome on your potential clients' pockets.
Yeah, one thing I did recently on a luxury listing actually out in the suburbs is I paired up with a interior designer / architect, and we took the architectural drawings of the home and actually had 3D renderings done of the kitchen and the master bath scaled to size. So it wasn't just virtually staging or changing, you know, a cabinet color through like Photoshop and stuff. It was physically providing 3D renderings of what you could completely redesign and redid. And then we actually had those blown up poster size within the space during the showing. So then in person, you can see the rendering and the space that you're envisioning. And the feedback has been absolutely amazing from that.
Under contract?
It is not yet, but it's only been on market for a couple of weeks and it's over 2.5. So
It was
Not-
one of the
not
it was,
surprised.
it was one of the 9 homes that already sold in Lake Forest. Ashley did one of them.
I'm gonna
You know,
go.
something I've found, and Morgan, that's a really good question. Something I found that's always worked is just over-informing. A lot of realtors get into trouble with sellers, especially when they start avoiding. If there's nothing to report, they just sometimes don't report anything at all. And the sellers think they're hiding something, or they just don't know the actual work that they're doing to sell the place. So something I found for listings, especially that aren't, selling quickly, is talk to the sellers all the time. Tell them what's going on. If there's nothing going on, then make sure they know that. Just if anything, give them as much information as possible and never avoid. Like I said, once you avoid, they just assume you're not doing anything. So over-informing is something that I've done to make sure our sellers kind of stay sane during this crazy time.
I agree with Danny. I have my system set up of reaching out with my sellers pretty regularly. And again, part of it being them getting an MLS search so that they're seeing the market activity in real time as I'm seeing it, but also, InfoSparks, having to take the emotion out of it for clients, and just really breaking it down to the data. That's not our opinion. We can't change that. We have no control over that. The market is the market, and, helping them to understand that is a huge part of it.
I actually said to some sellers recently, we're friendly. We're not friends, but we're friendly. And I said, okay, so waiting on you guys to tell me where you want to list. Do you want the emotional decision or the data-driven decision? And there was a pretty powerful thing, because one of the parties in the couple was like, get your emotions out of it, to the other person, and that was helpful. But I've always been data. Give it to them, show them what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think
I
too,
feel like I've heard that from you before, Joey.
You have.
and for me right now, I focus mostly on what goes under contract.
Yeah.
And that is telling you where the market is at this point in time. An active listing is giving you no data other than the fact that it's not the right price and nobody's willing to pull the trigger on it. And so most of my listing appointments the conversation has been based around what is under contract and how long did it take to get under contract, and what assumptions can we make of the data based on that. And that's where you need to be, because otherwise I think sellers end up chasing the market. I mean, I just felt like closed and active listings didn't have as much value this year as what the contingent properties were telling us.
Totally. I did the exact same thing. And actually it's interesting this year, with everybody paying so much more attention to the finishes of their own home and what they want it to look and feel like. I actually put together a grouping of properties that literally every single one that had gone under contract this year, every single one had white trim, everyone. So guess what we did before we listed that property? Painted it white, and it's just those little details that I think make all the difference right now.
And I thought I had an interesting comment, and this was way earlier in the year, but the buyers were wanting it to be finished and updated because they didn't want vendors in their home. They did not want to deal with moving into a home and having to do rehab work and having strangers in the house. They wanted it to be finished, because that was a major concern. Now, is that still a concern now? I don't know, but it definitely was at the beginning of the year.
I have a question in a different direction, not necessarily about the market. I am thinking of switching my CRM. Does anyone have a CRM that they love? I currently use Contactually, and I'm a little frustrated by it. Anybody have something they love?
This would be my plug for Compass. Shameful, I know.
I mean, Compass bought Contactually, which is what I use, and I just find it a bit clunky lately.
Yeah.
It's a good question, Joey. I'm always on the lookout for stuff like that too. So I might take some notes.
We have had some agents really like the Buffini CRM, actually.
Yeah.
It's actually what I use, Ashley. And it's funny too, because my boyfriend's a Salesforce architect. I don't know what to tell you, but he designs them and builds them, and I'm like, yep, I'm gonna stick with my Buffini. Because it really is, I have two. So Baird and Warner have a KV core that they provide us, and I have my Buffini, and my Buffini is my gold. That is my top ABCs. There's nothing else in there. And everybody else I meet is in my KV core. The KV core is actually great. If anything, it's probably so robust that I'm not using half of it, but it has a great lead nurturing, just very automated lead nurturing side to it. So if you're a Zillow person or something like that, I think that has great benefit because it's just very automated. You know, it's quickness to respond on those things. But I love my Buffini. Keep it pretty simple.
I didn't know that they had a CRM. Last time I heard of Buffini was just, you know, they were mailing you the cards for you to send out to your.
No, it's pretty nice. It's very simple, super basic. There's really not much to it. And it's for me, it's easy to keep track of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good input.
Yeah, check out Pipe Drive too, Joey.
Pipe Drive?
Yeah, that's what I use.
Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, I don't think any of them are all that exceptional, but it's just whether or not you have routine and structure and consistency in your day to go through it and use it. I mean, that's what my boyfriend says, even with the Salesforce, like they build these like super elaborate platforms and then you can't get the clients to use them. So eventually falls back on us.
I will ask you a question, Lynn, about that. So, but Buffini is, I mean, I would think the value of that would be it's catered because he does, you know, Brian Buffini does real estate training. Like that's catered toward realtors. I mean, that's like in their wheelhouse. So he eats and breathes what you guys sort of need, I would guess.
It's a referral-based CRM. That is where its focus is. Its focus is definitely not on lead nurturing from a Zillow standpoint or anything like that. And my business is 85% referral. So I just, that works for me. So I think it's also important to find what complements your business style and how you're growing your business. But Buffini is not going to be ideal for somebody who's like a Zillow lead type person.
Got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyone here use Zillow for leads?
So this year, I don't pay for it, but one of my colleagues has a team and they were having a hard time, you know, just converting. He was just struggling a little bit to convert some of the leads and asked me to hop on. And I've actually had pretty good, I mean, during COVID, I contracted quite a few Zillow leads, which was surprising. One of them was completely remote. The people had never met me, hadn't been in Chicago, were not in the house, and they saw the house on the day of the closing. So I think, and it's been busy actually. I've been surprised how the calls are still coming in, especially over the holiday.
So I had only started it probably last year at this time. They've been after me for, 9 years. And I finally said, look, I'm not paying $5,000 a month. And so I closed, I think 2 from it last year. Then I turned it way down to $100 a month. Mm-hmm. And I just turned it back up. I think I'm at $1,500 a month, which is still really low for a Zillow spend. But I think it's going to be, buyers are kind of where it's at probably, I think, for this.
Well, there's potentially big changes coming to the way Zillow hand out the leads come next year. We may not see it here in Chicago, but it's in the pipelines and it's definitely starting to trickle out into more urban areas where they're moving to a referral fee structure as opposed to a zip code purchasing.
Yeah, in Arizona, they're doing that already. And there was talks about it happening in Chicago too. My Zillow reps been talking about that for a year or so, but
yeah, it's going to be, I think they'll struggle in the cities because of all the big teams, but I think out in the more, I think you'll see it different in different parts of the country, but they're talking about it.
Danny, do you use Zillow leads?
That's why I'm here, my friend. Seriously, I would say maybe 60% of my sales have been from Zillow leads. It's one of the first things I invested in when I got in real estate in 2011. And, back then 100% of Lincoln Park was available. It was so cheap. And now it's unbelievable how different it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, with my team especially, one of the things I train is how to take these leads and turn them into clients. It's obviously not easy. It took me a long time to figure it out. There was a lot of trying and failing to get to that point. But I think now I've kind of come to a point where I'm comfortable enough and confident enough to pretty much convert anyone I get.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
But yeah. Something we talked about earlier, and I think maybe we could bring it up before we leave, is, and I was curious about you guys too, what you guys have seen in terms of the market pre-election versus post-election. A lot of people and a lot of buyers in general are waiting for the election to be over to start, buying again. Have you guys seen that at all, or have you seen a change before the election to now?
I will say that I did see it pick up a little bit post-election. I mean, statistically, and it's funny because and Steve Barrett has told us this year after year that actually statistically elections do not impact home sales. If you really dive deep into the numbers, they typically don't, though people feel it. And I think there's a sense of it, but it doesn't actually show up in the numbers. I'd be curious about this year to see how that actually shakes out, because it was definitely a very different election cycle than we normally see. But I would say it was pretty quiet. And then I felt things pick up a little bit after the election, but then also there was a talk of the vaccine. So I'm not sure what was first, the chicken or the egg.
I was listening to a forum, and it was very unique. And the previous election cycle, they stated that it would have had more of an effect. But going back to our previous conversation in regards to rates and how cheap money is currently, it doesn't matter if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're that luxury home-time buyer, second or third, the money is still there and it's cheap. And with that being available to any buyer, it just has not made a difference if someone's going to go ahead and do that, because the affordability is still there regardless on which side you're on.
Yeah. And that is, I don't know if you guys have seen that also, but I find that rates do not get people off the fence. Like, that is not the number one driving factor. There has to be something else that drives them to make that decision. It is typically not just somebody sees low interest rates and all of a sudden decides, oh, I'm going to go out and buy a house. There's so many other parts to that before they even get to that point. So I think that's what some sellers are struggling with right now. Like, I don't understand, the rates are so low. Why aren't people out buying? Well, because there's so many other things that come into play, not just interest rates.
And
I think that's that whole logic versus emotional. Yeah.
And
yeah, and I think like low rates, like, oh, sorry. Going back to Joey talking about his 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo, people that originally were only being able to afford 2-bedroom, 1-bath can now potentially afford 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So now this entry level, budget in Chicago has that increase now. And so now, is that even creating a different subclass of property that is even now harder to sell, because you don't even have an entry level buyer that's budget is that max? It's now increased that much higher.
And lenders have different programs that are out there available now. You can get away with 15% down only with no PMI. I mean, there's some very unique programs out there that people are scoring that just allows their money to go, a long way for that. So
it's kind of.
Yeah, I definitely think for me over the next few weeks, I'll be touching base with my lenders to see if they're seeing any increase in calls for pre-approvals or just conversations. Like, I'm always interested, like, when contracts are down or activity's low, like, what are they seeing on their end? Are they doing a lot of pre-approvals? Are they not? Because I think if we start to see people make those inquiries prior to the new year, that could be almost indicative of what we'll see at the beginning of the year.
I always like to check in with my attorneys as well. And my attorney is like, I've gotten more contracts this November than I've ever had in November.
Yeah.
So it hasn't, and for me personally, like, it hasn't slowed down. I mean, it has slowed down from July, but I would normally be slower than I am right now in a normal year. So it's weird.
Yeah. I feel like I'm having a lot of the conversations this month, well, just tail end, like right around Thanksgiving, that I would normally be having early January. So I'm starting to get those referrals come in, and our clients who I knew were kind of thinking about it are starting to want to have the conversation. I had a call with a client yesterday. We're talking about, getting the house ready for the spring. And I think those conversations for me, are happening a little sooner.
Yeah.
One quick question for everyone. Luxury market. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Do you see things just, staggering? Obviously, when you go to the North Shore, things are moving more. I've kind of seen a mix out of it.
There's one of the agents on our team actually traditionally would focus on a really heavy sort of canceled expired campaign in the suburbs, which now no longer really exists because if it was on the market, it's been sold at this point. So in terms of just, you know, business planning for next year and what your outreach is looking like and stuff, that's been very busy.
There was a good couple of months where, and I know I had to talk to my lender Joel about this recently, but for jumbo loans, they wouldn't accept anything less than 20% down. And that cut out a great amount of demographics of people who would usually go to the luxury route. So, you know, since then, and I think it's available now where you can go under 20% and get a jumbo, but for that period of time, yeah, it was really slow in the luxury market for sure.
That same jumbo market hit the multi-unit pretty hard as well, because you went from, you could do 20% down on a 2-flat jumbo. It went to like 30 for a month or so, and it was painful.
Yeah.
I'd be curious too, now that you mentioned that, Joey, about what people's experience have been with multi-unit, and do you think there's been any impact with the city's eviction rules and all the restrictions that were put in place? Personally, I've seen landlords want out of the game because obviously the city has put some very strict rules in place. And I'm wondering if anyone else has seen that from their investors.
I have seen the mixed use market be pretty easy to get into, because I think there's more mixed use out there than there would be prior, because, you know, you got a 1,500 square foot commercial space. It's pretty hard to rent at the moment.
Yeah.
What restaurant is taking it, and do you want a restaurant as a tenant?
Right.
But I always find there's a price point dividing line in terms of how well the tenants are going to do, or if it's going to perform. And I find under 2,000, a lot of my landlord clients are struggling with their tenants, either not paying or wanting out. And over 2,000, it's been pretty steady.
Yeah, I have a oriented landlord that just, I wish we could move. But yeah, we're currently taking it off the market and putting it back on in January. I do think that has a lot to do with landlords just hearing news about, like Joey said, evictions and people not paying and maybe being nervous about taking on a job like that, which is understandable. But you know, with this one being in an area like Lakeview, you think it wouldn't have that issue. And we've been keeping track of everything else in the area, and no one else is really moving either. But yeah, I've noticed that you know, when you're in close quarters, when you have 4 different units in one building, you know, the idea of having that with COVID is just not really.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I've had a conversation with a few people, and they're like, yeah, you know, those restrictions are right. You shouldn't be able to evict anybody. And I have to remind people that, you know, that I think in their heads, they see an investor with all this money and they're just this big, uber wealthy person. And that's not, we have a lot of armchair investors in this city, and it just happens to maybe been their first home. They rent it out and they can't necessarily afford for that unit to sit, you know, with no income coming in. So I think it's been an interesting conversation that I've had with people regarding multi-unit market and investment properties and things like that, because it's really hurting those, you know, small armchair investors that maybe just have a couple of units that they rent out and they literally can't afford to carry those extra units.
No, it's good. This is all good stuff. Just to be respectful of everybody's time. This has been great. You know, if you let these drag on too long, then people don't want to join another one. So I do have one final question for Billy. Okay. What is your like 1 or 2 best selling items around this time of year? I'm just curious. Because you guys sell a slew of stuff. I know, I put you on the spot, man.
Up to 2019 or 2020, because that's
let's do. We'll end with that. Let's do both. You pick. Roll the
right
dice.
now. Anything concerning being home, blankets that are embroidered, wine sets, anything that we can box, personalize, and ship to people's houses that they can use at their house is everything that we're selling right now. You know, stuff.
Objects that hold alcohol. That's really interesting to me. I would not have not have pegged that, right?
I know, right? Those are the biggest things, because everybody's still kind of in a work from home mentality, even though there's kind of the workforce is going to be different forever going forward. You know, my partner is a software engineer and used to work at OnePru. he'll never go back to the office. His office is now in our sunroom. And that's going to happen a lot more. So companies are focusing a lot more on stuff that will play well in a home situation versus a giveaway.
Gotcha.
Because there's not going to be an opportunity to give anybody anything other than, or like, be it FedEx or one-on-one. So
Something
that's
practical. No, that makes perfect sense. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody jamming with us. I'm going to cut the live right now. And the live stream is stopped. So, hey guys, thanks so much. Oh, like I said, I want to try to end on time. You know the drill. If you're interested in getting on another one of these, let me know. Just email me. We'll shuffle the deck, get some different realtors, different partners on the call. I think we're technically booked out of these until I want to say end of January, maybe early February. So just let us know. I wish you guys a productive rest of your day. I'll let you get to it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Happy
All right,
holidays.
Sandy. Happy birthday, Mike.
Adios.
Take care.